And welcome back to another daily devotion. I am Pastor Roy here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa, and this devotion is for Wednesday, September 6th of 2023. We have made it to the final chapter of the book of First Timothy. We're in chapter 6, and today we're going to only look at verses 1 and 2. We're just going to take a little bite today, not going to take on a whole lot, because verses 1 and 2 to me don't really flow with the rest of the chapter, and it's a difficult one. This is a toughie. It's one that we certainly can, disagree on. We can be upset about, perhaps even, but it's talking about slavery, which is a tough one. We have a lot of baggage, so to say, with slavery here, especially here in the U.S. We have a very poor historical understanding of slavery, to be honest. But we don't want to really get into that. Slavery has existed since the dawn of humanity. We like to say that prostitution is the oldest profession, but you know what? Slavery probably predates it, and most of those prostitutes were slaves, just as most slaves, and there are more slaves today than ever before in history, most of which are sex slaves, and most of them are women and children, unfortunately, that are suffering under the persecution, if we want to call it that, of being a slave. And it is a terrible problem. It's a problem we have to deal with. Definitely have to deal with. Here, the author gives the owners that are Christians a bit of a pass, as you know, that they have slaves. But in this day and age, before we even jump into this, I'm going to say that if you're having slaves, especially because so many of them are sex slaves, but even beyond that, even if you just got people laboring in a factory where for little to no pay and barely feeding them and housing them, you ain't a Christian if you're doing that to somebody. Times have changed, our understandings have changed. You're not a Christian. So with that, let's jump into 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, and we'll talk some more about it. Let all who are under the yoke of slavery regard their masters as worthy of all honor, so that the name of God and the teaching may not be defamed. Those who have believing masters must not be disrespectful on the ground that they are brethren. Rather, they must serve all the better, since those who benefit by their service are believers and beloved. Okay. The yoke there, we're using the word of yoke, and of course we think animals when we think of yoke. It makes us perhaps cringe at that, but remember back in chapter 5 he said that he compared the elders to oxen. So he's been doing that already, and he's talked about laboring, but he's also talked about honor. He brings up honor here, and he was talking about honor back when we were dealing with the elders, remember. And I believe it when we were dealing with the widows as well. But don't quote me on that one. But I think he did. At any rate, here he's saying, and you got to remember that Paul always thought that the end was coming any minute. So a lot of times when he talks about slavery and where you find yourself, that's where you need to be, because why bother? The end's coming soon. There is no use in changing that. So we've got to remember that Paul always was under that assumption as well. But the point here, what can we take out of this that we can use for ourselves, out of this really uncomfortable thing where he's talking about slavery here? And sometimes they try to downplay that by translating that as bondservant, because bondservant seems a little less harsh than slave. And in reality, it is, because there you're working off a debt. It's like an indentured servant. So in some ways it is less, but a lot of those indentured servants ended up being slaves because the owners were cruel to them and didn't ever write down the debt. They kept coming up with, oh, you broke a plate, you broke something, that's more debt, and you didn't work that hard today, so we'll scratch off some. They came up with all kinds of things to keep people in slavery, so I want to say, in captivity, if we will. But here he's telling them to regard their masters with honor, to work, to show respect to them, and that by doing so, that they are in fact showing respect to God. That they're showing their faith. Now, again, where can we take that? Well, All of us find ourselves in difficult situations, unfair situations, situations that really no fault of our own. Sometimes, many times it is our own fault. And indentured servants would be because they had a bad debt, so that we could regard that as being their own fault. Though it could be because of weather. But anyway, I digress. We find ourselves in bad situations, all of us, at some point in time. How do we deal with that situation? Are we dealing with that in a way that shows that we have faith that God will get us through this? That no matter how dark the day is God going to provide for us? Is God going to get us through this? Will our faith get us through this? And also, this is just an earthly deal that we're dealing with here. Our spiritual life, the life of our spirit, our eternal life, is much more important. And also, the master, we need to be concerned about his spiritual life as well. Now, that really kind of bizarre to us, because we would look at it, as I was being a little harsh, very harsh on those that own slaves today, justifiably so. But at the same time, we as Christians are worried about their very mortal souls too. And we want to bring them to Christ. We just as so many of the slave traders came to be Christians, many of them did see the error of their ways and did convert and were remorseful and repentant and all of those saints. And there was much of that happened, and some of that was the witness of the people that were in slavery, because that is a witness. No matter where we're at, no matter how difficult the situation that we're in, remember you are witnessing to other people, even those that are putting you down, even those that are trying to cause you problems, even those ones that are hurting you. Your behavior is a witness to them. That's tough. That might even be tougher than talking about slavery. But it's something we need to all remember, that our lives is a witness. How we deal with the difficulties, how we deal with the evil that is beset upon us. That's the witness. Let your life be a witness. Okay? With that, I think I'm done for today. I've had enough. So if you do get anything from this devotion or any of the other devotions, please like and subscribe. Come on back. We'd love to see you around. And if you'd like to make a kind comment, please post a kind comment down below. Share this video if you'd like, please. We'd love to continue to grow the channel. Excuse me. I'd love to see the channel grow a little bit more. We'd love to get the word out, because that's what it's about. We're supposed to get the word of Christ out to as many folks as we can. Please help. Have a blessed day, and please, please, please be a blessing to someone today. Tell them about Jesus. Take care. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.